Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And sadly, Rush is not with us this week as well because of internet problems.
Yay, technical difficulties.
Yeah, just an interesting trivia, uninteresting trivia to some of you, interesting to some of you, I guess. This is actually the second time we're trying to record this episode, and last time we did it with Rush a few hours ago, and due to his internet problems, we had to stop. But hopefully, Rush will be back with us next week. But until then, we have an episode to talk about. So, apparently, around a year ago, a video was uploaded into YouTube called How to Train a Dragon Deleted an Alternate Footage Collection. To those who've seen it, yeah, we know we're probably a bit late to the party on this one, but hey, better late than never.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're going to talk about are some of the alternate and deleted stuff that's in this video. Now, some of the stuff that's in there was actually in the How to Train Dragon 2 Blu-ray, and that will be the topic of discussion for another episode. So we will ignore what's on the Blu-ray, but we're focusing on everything else. So, Wolf, you saw the clips.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much do you think those clips would have changed the overall plot if How to Train Dragon was this way? How to Train Dragon 2, sorry, was this way?
Um, uh, Again, like at the beginning of the video in question, and like we can give a link to the video in the description just so people know exactly what it is we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. A link to the video will be in the description to those who don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but looking at the beginning half of the video, I don't think it would change too much, simply because it feels like a lot of those scenes could be in the second movie. And again, like they wouldn't change a lot. Some dialogue might change, but overall, mostly still the same movie. Later on in the video, we do get to see storyboards of Valka being the villain, and I do think that would change a lot of the movie that we got. Like that would change a lot of the overall feel and tone, just everything about it.
Mhm. Okay, I kind of agree that I don't think it will change. It won't change the movie drastically, but I do think, to those of you who don't know, Dean once said that when Valka was supposed to be the villain of How to Train a Dragon 2, Drago would have been mentioned, but we wouldn't see him until How to Train a Dragon 3. Obviously, obviously it's no longer the case, but I do think that when the script was changed, they pretty much took Valka's role and put Drago in there for the most part, um, in several scenes, and I think the biggest difference would have been no Drago. He, like Dean said, he would have been alluded to, and someone has to give the order to attack Valka's nest, as we see in the storyboards for one scene,
Mm-hmm.
and and we can also see on in those storyboards, Eret is riding Stonefly with Astrid, so the scene where they are escaping and releasing the dragons on Drago's ships might have still been in the film, but we just wouldn't see Drago.
Yeah.
And like we'll get like Drago gave the order to attack the nest, yada yada yada. And but yeah, overall, we don't think those clips would have changed much in the overall plot. Like some things, sure, but overall, hmm.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay, yeah, so the second thing we want to talk about is that obviously the meat of the video are the storyboards where we see one of the scenes as Ivalka was the villain. And that's the scene where Drago's army attacks her nest, the Bewilderbeast's icy haven, as you
Mm-hmm.
will. Um, So our thoughts on Valka as the villain, and I'm just going to theorize something here before we actually talk about Valka being the villain. Um, I think that at one point during the production of Serpent Cell, Dean and Richard Hamilton were sitting around walking, and at one point they started drinking together. And Richard Hamilton asked Dean if he had some of the old storyboards of Valka being the villain. Dean told him, I don't know, they are not really that good in my opinion. Show me. And then he showed them, and he said, hey, can I use this for that kind of villainous female character who's pretty much Valka's age in our show? Yeah, sure, why not? And then one day after Dean sobered up and he saw that Richard Hamilton actually used this, he was like, oh my god, he actually did it. What have I done? To those of you who don't understand where I'm going with this, please tell me that Berkcast transformation in those storyboards is anything different than Mala's at the end of the rest of the Edge 3. Tell me.
I would say it's somewhat different.
Like the circumstances, yeah, but overall it's also like I trusted you, but now something happens and all of a sudden I don't believe you anymore. It was really on the spot. No, like there was no motivation to this. There was no, how would I say it? There was no, like she
There's
just
no
went
hint
from
of
good
it.
to bad.
Yeah, there was no hint of
Yeah,
it for
there's
Mala. Yeah.
no, yeah. No, I'll say even for Volca in the storyboards, like
Well,
nothing,
for the
nothing in like again. We are talking about. I'm sorry, just to make myself clear. We are. I'm saying this in the context of I only saw those storyboards. Maybe if I
yes,
read or saw
more the
the entire
context would
version
be
of this,
different. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, maybe, but as is, it's just like, okay, we met Hiccup's mother, cool, and now all of a sudden she sees other people riding dragons, and all of a sudden it's like, my own son lied to me, I can't believe it. Here's this big ass dragon, which obeys only me and can mind control the other dragons, and let's say if this leads to the Bewilder Beast brainwashing Toothless to kill Stuik, then like it seems to go a bit too far for Valka to kill her own husband,
Well,
if you know what I'm talking about.
it is worth remembering also that the people she sees riding the other dragons are the other teens from Berk, and that's why she thinks Stoic and Hiccup and the rest of Berk are out to get her as well. And it
But
is
why?
it's worth remembering, right? Like, how did she, again, when she left Berk, her and Stoic may not have been on the best of terms, right? She was all for protecting and not fighting the dragons, while everyone else was like, no, we need to kill the dragons. Like, that's the backstory they were trying to give for Valka before the second movie was released. Like, Valka was someone who was all for not fighting the dragons, finding a peaceful solution. Everyone else was against her in
Yeah,
that idea. So
we also see it in the final movie.
yeah, absolutely. So it makes sense somewhat that she might view Berk as still an enemy to dragons because she's more aligned with the dragons now than she is anyone else. And I think that was kind of the idea that, like, she's willing to turn against her own husband because she no longer cares about him. She cares more for the
Yeah,
dragons.
but again, why her husband starts caring about dragons as well? He rides a dragon himself.
She doesn't know that, though. Even at that point, even at that same point in the second movie, she still doesn't necessarily know that Stoic rides a dragon. She doesn't even believe Hiccup in the second movie.
And also, you
when he
know what?
says it.
Yeah, but when she sees it, and obviously she must have come across Skull Crusher, because let's be honest, Skull Crusher, you can't miss him. He's huge. And also, what seems to take her off is not necessarily Stuek, but the fact that Hiccup, her own son, lied to her. Why would she think Hiccup lied to her? Like, she met Toothless. Toothless is in the scene. What? again, maybe without context, maybe
Context is
with
always key, right?
context, it could have been it could have, because I'm telling you right now, from those storyboards alone, I think Volka is a weaker villain than Drago, to be honest. Because at least with Drago, when you saw him, the movie was honest, was straightforward with us. He's the bad guy. But with Volka, assuming the movie would have played out the same until that moment, we pretty much saw a character that we could get behind and like, and then all of a sudden, on the flip of a dime, she is a villain. Uh, like if there was if we started decreasing, I would have got it, but as is, like, and again, it's all assumption based on what we have. It could have been it's probably different in the version of the script that they had. I don't know, but hey, I'm just saying that based on what we saw, I am glad they changed it.
I, I've always said it in the past, and I'll still stand by it now. I would love to see that original script and have the full context, right? I think that would be
Yeah,
very interesting to know at the very least. But for me, like, I've never been like
I
100%
think.
for villain Valka. Like, that's not been like my 100% go to. Like, for me, it was always I just wanted to see some acknowledgement of her faults and like some kind of thing there between her and Hiccup. And from these deleted scenes, we do get two lines that kind of acknowledge that. Two lines that I feel could have been placed in the movie that we did get, not the movie that we didn't get. One of those lines being like Hiccup kind of addressing Valka, that's actually mostly animated and mostly animated.
Mostly, it's a completely animated
There's
shot that
definitely a Passover for quality that's missing and everything.
like like the shot where he tells welcome mommy is not that person anymore. That's like, I think that's a complete shot, like
Again, I think
animation, lighting, and everything.
it's still missing some final Passovers. I'm sure looking at it, but overall, it's more complete than say just the storyboards we get of villain Valka essentially, which are just storyboards. And there's another line as well, like him, I'm guessing, addressing his mother directly that says, I guess I like the idea of having a mom, all right, even if she's completely nuts and we're better off apart. Like, that line for me, I think if you change around some of the dialogue there, it could have been in the second movie that we got. And I think that alone would have said, all right, I'm happy now. At least you've addressed this character. You've had these two characters address each other. And that for me would have really made what one of my complaints of the second movie is completely disappear, because I would have at least gotten something from that. So and I just
Actually,
was it time? Was it they thought it was not important, or they just feel that they couldn't change the dialogue to make it fit in any conceivable way? I don't know. I'm very curious to know why they have something that's practically done as far as it could have gone into the movie animation wise and dialogue wise and everything. I'm very curious to know, like, why wasn't that particular line in the movie, but or something similar to that. But maybe that's an answer I will never know. Who knows?
actually, on that, like you mentioned one shot that it's entirely animated, but with no lighting, no background even.
Yeah.
Where Hiccup says, like you said, I guess I just like the idea of having a mom, but maybe we're better off apart. But he does mention, I feel like everybody has something worth saving,
Yeah.
and also later on there's another shot, like Hiccup is fully animated and has all the lighting effects and stuff, but the background is obviously not what it's supposed to be if it was in the final film, but he does say something like he sort of remembers like the good memories he had with Valka, most likely the flying with mother scene, and he says that he chooses to remember those moments. Um, so again, based on those two lines, I I kind of remain with my theory that most of the script in the version Valka was the villain. Probably wouldn't change much, and that again makes her weak, because if everything, because that's it, like this. The scene and the line where he says, I guess I like the idea of having a mom, he could have said it during the Strix ship scene, when, and the line where he says he wants to remember the good times he had with his mother. That's after the final fight with the Bewilder Beast, just replaced Drago with Valka. So it kind of makes sense that it's in that what's preceding Valka being a villain is what we saw in the final film. Again, we don't know. I'm just speculating over here, but I'll say it like this: it's an interesting idea. Execution, I'm not sure about from what I saw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, and kind of a quick segue. After seeing all this, do you think this version of the movie would have been better than the version that we got?
Again, that's going to come down to context, right? Like, based on what we see, you've already said you don't think so.
Again, what I just not just create this base. Everything we say about on here is assumption.
Yeah.
Like we are assuming based on what we know, and
Absolutely.
like if one day they release storyboards of the entire first draft of the movie, and then it could change everything about from what we say right now and make this episode outdated. But we are saying from what we have now, this is what we're talking about. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. We are going. Some stuff we say is a bit out of context, probably. But anyway, go ahead.
Based on that, then I would say, like, based on what we just said, I would say I would be interested in seeing it. Would it be a good movie? Would it be better than the movie we got? Again, I don't know. I think so. I think maybe, depending on how it was done. So, that's my guess. If it was done well, I think, yeah, it could have been a better movie. I think I would have enjoyed it more based on what we've seen here. But I don't know. It's a shot in the dark. I think it would be interesting, possibly even more interesting than the movie we got at the very least. I think I can say that with certainty, that it would definitely have been more interesting.
I I myself am not sure if it would have been better. Like I already stated why I think Valka wouldn't been as good of a villain as Drago, to be honest. A more interesting and complex character, maybe, but as a villain, I already said why. Again, based on what we have, it might not have worked as well. But overall, actually thinking about it now, this is a very tough question. Who wrote this? Oh yeah, me. Uh, you know, I I'm not sure it's better. I won't say better. I may even say I say worse, not as if it would have necessarily been bad, but not as good as what we have now. But it would have been again. It wouldn't have been a bad movie. In fact, it would be a lot more interesting, and I'll even argue it would have been riskier in terms of
Oh yeah, absolutely.
what you expect your audience to chew, because again you're pretty much again all assumption. You are taking a character which up to this point was a character you made us like and you made us appreciate her existence, because it's nice to see Hiccup having a mom, and a mom that he can relate to so much, when him and his father, while they can relate now, the relationship is still a bit complex. Um, so it's nice to see all of this. And then she changes on a dime, turns on her son, turns on her husband, and presumably using her giant dragon to brainwash Toothless, the main dragon who sells them toys, to kill her husband. Yeah, this would have been a lot to chew on, and a lot that you need to you need to make sure your audience will accept, because let's say it like this, a lot of people were probably a bit shocked when Toothless killed Stuart while being brainwashed in the second movie as it is. So, and then you also need to take into consideration that Hiccup wouldn't only be mad at Toothless, he would also be mad at his mom. And actually, now that I think about it, do you think those storyboards were with the version that Gabber was supposed to die?
Well, looking at those storyboards, when you see Toothless blast Hiccup, you do see Gobber in that scene behind Hiccup. So.
Yeah, true.
I don't know what the idea was there, to be honest. But it is something that, he's more involved in that scene, perhaps, maybe, than what he was before,
Could
which
be.
was kind of late to the party.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know what? I'm not necessarily sure if it would have been better, probably not, but in terms of interesting from a story standpoint and what you ask from your audience, definitely more interesting and a lot darker.
So basically, we
And
think it would be potentially more interesting, maybe good, maybe bad, we don't know, but definitely more interesting.
yeah, because people think that interesting automatically means good,
Not
and
necessarily.
sometimes things could be interesting to look at, but they're not necessarily good in the context of what you're trying to achieve. Like let's say Moonwalker, the Michael Jackson movie. It's interesting, but it's not necessarily good.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing is probably just a meeting because uh, there there were two very short shots that were completely animated, like animation, lighting, all were done, but they weren't in the final film. Like the one of them is there's the short scene where the other riders are sitting on that iceberg, and Astrid tells them pretty much commands them to go find Eret
She
because
says,
they want to
let's
find
go.
Hiccups to it. And
She says, let's go, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. And you see a shot of her flying off.
yeah, exactly. And you see the other riders looking at her. Now, that I'm willing to bet that in the final movie, there's the again we have that scene, and she says, let's go find them. And Fisher tells her, but what Stuick said that we should, and she tells them it doesn't matter what he says if they have been all captured already. So let's go. And she flies off, and there it cuts, and we cut to Eret's ship. So supposedly this was a follow-up shot. Like, after we see a Stormfly ascending from the iceberg, this is the shot we would have seen. And again, and it comes back again. There's a scene of Hiccup and Toothless about to land near Drago during the big fight on Valka's nest, and he yells them stop, and you can pretty much tell that this is right before they land and confront Drago for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's again kind of a meeting because I know in live action that you usually shoot a certain scene from all kinds of angles so that you can play around with it in the editing to make it look more interesting and stuff. But here, I'm not sure how animation works if you animate the entire scene as is and then you decide on the camera work later. But again, the thought that a lot of work was probably made to make those short shots. Like I think one shot of an animated movie of about a second takes about months to create. And to see those these shots were done. These shots were final. They were gold. And then to see them like being scrapped, it's part of the business. Don't get me wrong, but in live action, it's just a thing you do anyway because again you need all these angles. But in animation, people sat down and worked on it, and it's kind of sad to see this being scrapped. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, animation, like a company like DreamWorks, they've probably got this format very streamlined. So there may not have been as much work that was put into that as you might think. There was definitely some work put into it. There's not, you know, deny that, like, right? But the time and effort may not have been as much as you might think it was comparatively, because it's a very streamlined process as far as they're concerned now. They've got it down to
Yeah,
basically an art form, and they can probably do a lot more in a lot less time than, say, someone who's new at it could, or a much smaller
yeah.
company might be able to.
Also, I am aware that as someone who actually edits a lot now, in editing, sometimes every frame could be the difference between a movie dragging and a movie rushing. You know what I mean?
And looking at those two,
Like,
particular scenes we're talking about.
yeah, and yeah, and again, considering the context, I like thinking about this in my head. If the scene of Astrid flying away towards finding Eret would have been there, just it will make it seem like the movie drags. Same with that one shot, like if fick up it was about to land near Drago. But it's one of those things that it's so small, but it would have made so much more different in terms of pacing in the final film. And yeah, all I'm saying is it's kind of weird that it went through all this process before being cut. But hey, I don't know. I wasn't working on the movie, sadly.
Well, it's
So
from my understanding, right? Like they're going to. It's very much like animation is still similar to making an animated movie is still similar to making a regular movie as well, right? Like it's still a lot of show don't tell, and while these scenes are definitely not tell, I would say there's still a lot of show. It's show that might be unnecessary to kind of get what's happening. Like we don't need the shot of Hiccup still flying towards Drago, yelling "Hey, hey!" trying to get his attention. Like we don't necessarily need that shot. We still kind of
yeah.
get what's going on. So it makes sense that that scene was cut. What it probably was, in my opinion, again, I'm not an animator. We should probably get an animator on to talk to at the show, talk to on the show at some point. Probably could shed a lot of
Yeah.
light for us. But from my understanding, that scene, like they would have done an entire thing for that from beginning to end, and said, all right, and then looked at it from beginning to end, saying, all right, this is what we need, this is what we don't need, this is what's unimportant, and this is what's really important, to kind of get across what's happening right now to the audience. And this is why you'll see stuff that's like, this isn't necessary, to get across what's happening in this scene to the audience. That'd be my opinion on it, and my thought process on it, from what I do know. Which
Yeah,
again is
no,
very
I
limited.
agree. Again, I agree. Just, a small thing I noticed that I wanted to talk about because I thought it would be interesting. Yeah.
Thinking about this question, though, there are a few scenes that definitely do add a lot and change up some stuff
Mhm.
that we haven't necessarily talked about. One specifically being Eret and Hiccup's kind of bout with one another. Like that's not something we
Yeah.
see in the
And
movie
the
that we
reason,
got, but
yeah, because again, it's on the latest on the Blu-ray, so we'll
mhm.
talk about it in the future.
Oh, okay.
Although I will say I really like that scene.
It
I
is
like
here,
out
so
of
we
all
should.
the.
My opinion on it, yeah, I definitely like it as well. And,
Mhm.
bringing it
Yeah.
up since it is in the video, and we should kind of go over it a little bit. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that scene too, and wouldn't have minded seeing that scene fully animated either.
Yeah,
Because it just
definitely. This is one of those scenes that I think I would have loved it if it was still in the final movie.
it just adds to Hiccup and Eret's character a lot,
Mhm.
and gives Eret a bit more
Uh,
than what he has in the second movie that we did get, I think.
yeah. Mm, So yeah, good scene. Also, the alternative opening that's halfway animated is also interesting and fits. I wouldn't have mind seeing it in the final film, but we'll talk more about this in a future episode. Look forward to that. But Moving on, there are two alternative dialogue scenes. Like one, both of them are hiccups, surprisingly enough. Um, and the first one is that after Hiccup informs Stuart that he's heard about Drago, and Stuart like grounds all the dragons.
Hmm.
In the final film, Hiccup tells them, let's go find him and change his mind because I changed your mind, I will change his as well. But in this, Hiccup tells him, you want. He reminds the fact that Stoic
Stoic wants him to
wants
be
him to be
chief and
chief.
says, "You want me to
Yeah,
be chief? Then let me do this my way. Then let me try to do this my
yeah,
way. Let's go and try and convince Drago." And then you hear, like at the very end, Stoic sigh and say no, and that's when the scene ends. That's the
yeah.
first one.
And to be honest, I don't like that because Hiccup's Hiccup's journey pretty much is from not caring about being the chief, or at least not thinking that he can be the chief, to eventually accepting the role, and eventually
Hmm.
because he thinks that being chief is being his dad, and
Hmm.
he can be his dad, and by the end of the movie he realizes that he doesn't have to be stoic. He can try and be stoic but still do it his own way. So the fact that they throw this line so early on, it doesn't fit with Hiccup's motivation, uh, from my point of view.
It makes sense from a this is a thing he would say to try and convince Stoic, but
Mhm.
yeah, I would agree. I think the line they went with in the second movie, from the finished product was better. This line seems a bit too much,
Mhm.
and the second line is
Um, the second line is on the Stoic ship scene, which, by the way, in this video is they show that Stoic's body is not covered by anything, and the arrows just hit his body. And to be honest, if this was in the final film, I would have told you it would have been interesting to see the TV promos, which say from the creators of Madagascar, How to Train Dragon 2, rated R.
I don't think it would have been rated R, but it probably would have still
Um,
kept its
it,
PG-13 rating
it, it,
or
it,
PG
yeah,
rating.
it would have been pretty. Like, let's say I would have waited until my kid would have been 10, maybe, to show him this.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it changes too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the same kind of scene,
Mm,
still
But
the
you
same
know,
kind of
but you,
emotion.
but you know, but you know what? Some people I watched the movie with actually thought that Strick would come back after this. So maybe if he wasn't covered in fabric, it would have made a no, no, he's dead,
It
he's
would
gone.
definitely cut down on that particular argument, yes. Probably no coming back from
I
that.
won't say name. I won't say names, mom, but yeah, some people thought it.
It is stoic.
Okay, but
Can never be
yeah,
too careful.
Hmm, yeah. Apparently, when his amazing beard will show up in the sky in How to Train Dragon 3.
You never know.
Hmm. But anyway, so the second alternative line is that, uh, like in the movie, the line goes, "I always afraid of becoming my dad, mostly because I thought I never could. How do you become someone that great, that brave, that selfless? I guess you could only try. A chief protects his own." In this, Hiccup says that Stoic would have stopped at nothing in order to protect Burke. So neither could we. I don't know. There's like it is a motivational speech,
Well, let's keep in
and
mind that may not be all to that line. Like the original line we hear in the finished product of the movie may still be there. That might be added on. Like that might have been, extra.
no, because he starts and he would have stopped at nothing to destroy to defend Burke. That starts when we see Hiccup facing the camera, and then when he turns around, he says, "Neither and neither would we."
I don't know.
So apparently,
I got the
they
feeling.
changed it from
Oh, go ahead.
like I think like the I was afraid of becoming my dad mostly because I never could. All this is the same. The I guess you could only try is the point where the change happens. I think.
I don't know. I got the feeling that that was like not necessarily a change, but just a part of that dialogue. That they just decided, no, scrap this piece.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
That
thought
the
it was all as.
beginning was probably
Oh yeah. Okay. I see.
yeah, and again, I prefer what they went with in the actual movie because I know saying like he would have stopped at nothing at destroying strict rest of the story Berk.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, HC. But like he said, he would stop at nothing to defend Berk. So then could be again, it's one of those. You just said that the point of the scene is that Hiccup realizes that he doesn't have to be stoic in order to be a good chief.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he compares them, he says, "I'm going to do this because that's my father, what my father would have done." It doesn't allow him to stand up much when he says, I guess you could always try." Is the point where it's like, I, I can try and be him, but at the same time, I'm also my own person. I make my own choices and my own decisions. And when he says a chief protects his own, he learned from his father, and he realized right there and there, we realizes why he wants to go back to Berk because that's his home, that's his people that he needs to protect. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
It works better in my opinion.
Yeah. I would agree. I think.
Also,
Go ahead.
I think also he would have done nothing something that could be. It's a bit more. Don't get me wrong. The movies are mostly cliched. I'm not saying that they aren't, but something about those choice of words seems a lot more cliche. Like you see this in every run-of-the-mill animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
So going with the a chief protects his own, it's a bit more, you know, I guess a bit more epic, maybe poetic in some sense. I don't know.
It stands out more and it's more unique to the movie, I would say.
Yes, exactly. So what do you think?
I would agree. I think this was one of those changes that was. This was one of those edits slash changes that worked better for it. I think if they would have had both lines or one or the other, it wouldn't be as good of a scene. So I would agree. I think this was an edit that was necessary to be made. Like it was a cut that I don't think we're hurt by missing that particular line.
Mhm. Okay, glad we agree on this. So, anything else we
Well, looking at this particular
actually
video.
I'm rewatching it right now. The scene where we talked about with Gabriel standing behind Hiccup, he does stand behind him, but uh, something I noticed in the storyboard of the Toothless Kills 2 scene, um, Hiccup apparently jumps out of the way, which he didn't do in the final film. It's like, oh, Dad, you're here. Good, take this. What?
I told you it was
and
Hiccup
the,
and Toothless's plan all along.
yeah, obviously. You know what? I said to myself that we are going to have this entire episode without mentioning it, and we did mention it. So, damn it, so close. But yeah, but Hiccup jumps out of the way. Stuik takes the plasma blast, and then behind them you can also see Gobber looking at him like, ooh, must have hurt.
Again, that's probably
You
like
know, I
that
think
DreamWorks comedy thing that they've still not necessarily
yeah,
left since
comedy.
Shrek.
Comedy. Hiccup's father died. Woo.
But again, like that's something that they've been kind of that's like a thing that's just synonymous with DreamWorks, right? Like they that face, like that was a thing that was prevalent in Shrek all over the place, right? and in a lot of their other more
Oh yeah.
comedy-driven flicks like Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar. Like that's just something they've never been able to inherently leave. So it doesn't surprise me that something like that is in there. I'm just very glad they didn't keep it because they realized, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe not the best
definitely.
time to be trying to do something funny like that with a funny side character. Maybe let's not do that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm looking over the video for a bit more. Again, there are some rough animations of the Stoic's funeral scene, and the specific film I'm about to talk about is on 12 minutes, 43 seconds. To the listeners who want to know what we're talking about, go to 12 minutes, 43 seconds. Wolf do it as well. So, and pause the video. Just and Hiccup's model looks off.
Mm-hmm.
Would be, do you see it? You know
I
what I
don't.
mean?
I don't have it pulled up right now.
Okay, so uh,
I
I'll
can't.
wait.
I can't.
Just what do you mean you can't?
I'm recording.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so go back to the
I'm the one
episode after we
recording
finish.
this episode. For those who are unaware, since Rush
Okay.
isn't here, so
Yeah,
it would
and my
be.
computer keeps giving me shit. So Wolf is backup recorder. But anyway, go
So if
back to the
anything sounds
episode
off in
after
this episode, this
we
is my first
finish.
time recording, so if that's why it sounds terrible, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect. But anyway, so 12 minutes, 43 seconds. Wolf, I encourage you to go back and see. Hiccup's face when he looks at supposedly Stoic's burning ship. One, his head looks a bit smaller than the rest of his body and armor, and it looks really off. Second of all, he has this blank stare, like he stares ahead like some kind of zombie, and it's kind of creeping me out. To actually, Wolf, do you know this commercial for an ice cream called Little Baby's Ice Cream?
No.
So to those of you who don't know, it's about this creepy ass guy made out of ice cream who looks at the camera with this dead eye stare while he eats himself, and he's
Oh,
I
that
eat
video.
little. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Hiccup looks like that with this fucking face.
Thanks for bringing that
It's
back
kind
up in
of,
everyone's mind who wanted to try and forget it. I'm sure they're
how
going to
can
thank
you
you for that one. They'd
how
never
can you
look at it
forget
again, and they
it?
just want to. That's the point. Want to try. That's the point of those words. Want to try.
Yeah, so that's a thing. That's a thing. And yeah, I think we pretty much covered all bases with this video. So,
Well, one final
um,
question.
eh,
Looking at
yeah.
this video, is there any particular scene that from this video in its entirety, whatever it is, that
Yeah.
you would have liked to have seen in the finished product of the second movie that we got?
Probably, probably just the scenes that were on the Blu-ray. Like nothing specifically in this whole video is something I want to see in the final film, because the scenes they cut, we know what they cut them, and the alternate dialogue, I said why I prefer the dialogue that's in the movie, and why I prefer Valka being the good guy, not the villain, based on what we know. So, yeah, basically, there's not a whole lot I would like to see in this from this collection in the final film. But I also need context. Probably without context, I can talk on and on. And
For me, I think I would like to have seen, like in the final film, I would have liked to have seen again, the fight between Eret and Hiccup, their back and forth. I would have liked to have seen that in the final movie that we did get. I think that would have been really good.
actually, you don't know. Like if we're talking about not necessarily in the final film, but I would have to see the Valka's villain scene fully animated, because I think that's also another thing that maybe if I saw it animated, her expressions the pacing of the voice actor. Maybe seeing it all fully realized would have made me a bit more appreciative of it,
Mm-hmm.
because from you can only get so much from just storyboards.
Yeah. Well.
So yeah, I'll say I would have loved to see it fully come to life, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily in the movie.
Okay. Interesting. Well, there's your answer to that question, then, audience. I'm curious. What
Actually,
about?
actually,
Go ahead.
and just another thing, there's there's a small, like, it's a fully animated scene that's also on the Blu-ray, where Hiccup activates Inferno with a bit of a saliva he got from a Cloud Jumper, and Inferno starts going all AWire, like he loses control over it, because Cloud Jumper has this spiral fire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of a fun scene, which again you can is actually in a more complete state in the Blu-ray than it is in the video.
Okay.
But it's one of those moments that I Dean says in the Blu-ray extras that they cut it a little bit because of pacing. But to be honest, I would have loved to see it in the final film. It would have been a funny moment, I think.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm. Okay, so anything else before we close
No, not at all.
this discussion? Mhm. So again, if you want to see the scenes and footage we're talking about, Wolf will put a link to it in the description of the video.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you want to talk to any of us, you can do this on Tumblr. We are known as Berkcast Team. On Twitter, we are Berkcast with capital B, capital C. We are all on the Berg Vine forums, and I think that's pretty much it. So until next time, I was HC,
And I've been Wolf.
and we'll talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.